This year, we've seen the price of beef reach unimaginable levels. In some parts of the country, it's going for more than $10 per pound. So that begs the question, is there an alternative that we can cook that will provide us with the same brisket experience, but at a more affordable price? Today, I'm exploring whether or not chuck roast can serve as poor man's brisket. So recently, I saw a video by Mad Scientist BBQ where he talked about using top blade as kind of the poor man's version of brisket. So I went out trying to find top blade, but it is impossibly difficult to find. So I'm using what is considered to be a cousin to top blade, and that is a bone-in chuck roast. So it might be a little bit different had I been cooking with a boneless chuck roast, but we're gonna see. I'm gonna cook it the same way I would cook a brisket. I'm gonna take it to around 165 degrees internal, and then at that point, we're gonna wrap it in butcher paper, let it rest for around 12 hours, slice into it, and see how it compares to the brisket experience, both in terms of taste and appearance and texture. For today's cook, we're going to set the Venom controller to 275 degrees. And here it's telling me to adjust the top vent to be 1/4 open. So I'll do that. So while we wait for the grill to come up to temperature, we will go ahead and get the chuck roast ready and seasoned. So here we have our bone-in chuck roast. There's a bone here. And then there's like a small bone on the other end. This is also a choice cut. But I'm confident that if we cook this, prepare it the same way that we do a brisket, that we're gonna have a pretty similar and satisfying experience. So I'm just gonna start off, I like to give it something to help bind the seasonings that I'm going to apply. Usually with brisket, I like to go with W sauce. So I'm just gonna put a little here, smear it over the top and the sides. And I'm gonna just keep the seasoning very simple today. I just have kosher salt. I like Diamond kosher salt. It's a little bit not as heavy as some of the other brands. I know a lot of other pit masters do like the Diamond brand. So that's what we're gonna use. Got mostly bone on the sides, but I'm gonna get a little bit of salt on the sides as well on the edges. Just don't want to leave anything out. We want every bite that we get from this to be good and flavorful. And then I'm gonna follow that up with, I've got some 16 mesh black ground pepper. Again, these are thick cuts of meat, so whenever you get a little bit concerned that you're using too much salt, too much pepper, don't worry, it can take it. And when you bite into it, you will not be overwhelmed. Now we're just gonna repeat the process on the other side. Our W sauce. Smear it over the top. And you don't have to use W sauce. You can even use water if you want. I used to use mayonnaise. Sometimes I still will. But you can also use mustard. You just want something that will give your seasoning something to adhere to. So this is what you would consider to be Texas style. Some people might add a little garlic powder or onion powder or paprika, but today I'm keeping it very simple, just salt and pepper. So I'm gonna put this back in my fridge and let it hang out while I wait for the Huntsman to come up to temperature, and then we'll get it on the grill. The Giant Huntsman is up to temperature, so we'll go ahead and get this chuck roast on. And basically I'm gonna let the fan do all the work of managing the temperature. I might do a few periodic check-ins just so we can see how the meat is coming along, but there's really not much that needs to be done. Just looking for the meat to reach the 165 range internal, and again, that's when we will wrap in butcher paper. All right guys, we are 2 hours into this cook, so we're just gonna take a peek. And I know if you're peeking, you ain't cooking, but for the purpose of the video, let's see how things are coming along after 2 hours at 275 degrees. Getting pretty good color. It's already forming. You can see that it's also sweating a little bit at the top. Just gonna do a little temperature probe. And wow, after 2 hours, we are already at 153 degrees. So I'm actually gonna put in a leave-in wireless thermometer so that I can start monitoring this a little bit closely. Because again, once we get to around 165, somewhere in that ballpark, that's when I'm gonna think about wrapping this in butcher paper with some beef tallow. So we'll do another check-in probably when we're at that point. All right, we are 4 hours into this cook, and we've reached the point where I am now ready to wrap the chuck roast as well as put a little bit of beef tallow on it as well. And we're gonna wrap it in butcher paper to finish out the cook and hopefully make this really tender. All right, so one of the hacks that I've learned over the years when it comes to your butcher paper and getting it ready to wrap your meat, the hack is to spritz it with some water. That'll make the butcher paper much easier, much more pliable and easier to fold and wrap. So that's what I'm doing here. And I'm just gonna give some more tallow on the other side as well. And you can see that that heat coming off of the chuck is already melting this tallow. And once we wrap it down with the butcher paper as well, that's just gonna hopefully add even more tenderness to this beef as we finish out the cook. Now, I will never profess to be the best at wrapping in butcher paper. This is backyard barbecue. I'm just gonna take it and I'm gonna put it on like that. And I think this will get the job done. It's nice and pretty tight. One more thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna add my wireless meat thermometer probe. So I'm looking to take this chuck to about 200 degrees internal, and that's when I will get it off of the smoker. And initially I'm going to continue to smoke this at 275 degrees, and I do have the option, now that it's wrapped, depending on how fast I want this to cook, I could bump up the temperature on the grill as well if I wanted to, but right now I'm content letting it go at 275. All right, the internal temperature on the chuck roast has reached 200 degrees. So now I'm going to go ahead and pull it off. What I'm going to do, like I would do a brisket, is I'm actually going to let this rest for a significant amount of time. This was on the smoker for almost 6 hours, so I'm going to put it in my in my food warmer and let it rest for at least 6 hours, maybe more. In the interest of time, full disclosure, I smoked this chuck roast, bone-in chuck roast yesterday because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get everything done while my video guy, Andrew, is here. Because again, we want to smoke this and treat this the same way that we treat a brisket. And right away, again, this is a bone-in chuck. And you can see bone is about ready to come right off. So this is gonna be super tender like a brisket. So let me try and get this out of the butcher paper as best I can. Another point that I want to mention is I actually had to leave the cook. I did the end of this cook remotely, and the finishing temperature for this chuck went a few degrees farther than what I wanted it to. So, but I can tell just by looking at it, I think this is still going to really closely sort of mimic the brisket. I'm already thinking maybe next time I will get a boneless chuck. But just again, going off of the recommendation of my butcher, he said that this bone-in chuck would most closely resemble what I might get with a brisket. So because it did go a little bit further than I wanted it to, so it kind of falling apart, but let's focus on this part right here. So this right here, and this slice here, this very much resembles what I would expect to get from a brisket. You can see there's the smoke ring, and very tender. It actually makes me think of what I would get with the point. You know, the point is the more tender, more fatty part of a brisket. And that's what this is reminding me of. I love the crust. The crust is looking good. We use beef tallow for the crust. Or I should say we use beef tallow for the wrap. And let me give you like another view. Again, this is just ready to just come right off of that bone. Kind of giving me the feel for when I'm cooking a bone-in pork butt, really. But look at that. I love the smoke ring. I love the crust. Again, like I said, it went a little bit further than I would normally take it. And the only risk in that is that when you cut into it, it comes out a little bit more like shredded beef. But I think, you know, you cut these into little cubes, and I think really the only thing left is to mimic or at least taste it, is to see the taste. Let me cut off this piece of fat here. So I'm really impressed actually, and I can't wait to taste it. But yeah, that is very brisket-like. Very brisket-like. So I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna cut a few little pieces here, give this a taste test. Again, seasoned with just salt and pepper. And yeah, it doesn't disappoint. It's beef. It does remind me very much of brisket. It's very tender. I will say though that the taste to me is a little more subtle. It's not as forward. I think when you take that bite into the brisket initially, you get a little bit more punch, you know, from the crust. I'm not quite getting the same amount of punch, but honestly, my thinking for these cuts here is I think these will go perfect as like a beef slider. So my thinking here is I'm gonna cut these up, and you know I'm gonna add these to like little Hawaiian roll, add some barbecue sauce and some coleslaw to it, and I think these will make outstanding sliders. So I guess my final takeaway is this a good poor man's brisket, like an alternative substitute for brisket? Yes, I think it does. It does check the boxes, right? Because you're gonna get the crust, gonna get a good smoke ring, much more cost effective. But I think you have to go in with the understanding that it's not going to be exactly the same as brisket. Again, I think as a standalone cut, I think I'm still going to prefer brisket. But I think, again, you can do a lot of things with these. You can turn these into burnt ends. You can, like I said, put them in, turn them into like Hawaiian sliders or barbecue beef sliders with Hawaiian rolls. I think there's a lot of promise, a lot of potential here. So let me know what you think about this video. Give it a shot. I think this is well worth giving a shot, especially if you've been kind of put off by the cost of brisket these days. Worth giving a shot. I was able to smoke this chuck that I did. This one was about 4 pounds. Took about 8 hours total to cook versus 12 to 14 when you've got a full packer brisket. So you're going to be able to do this in less time, and again, you can make a lot of folks happy by using chuck roast as an alternative to brisket, as well as make your pocketbook happy. So if you got value from this video, leave a comment, share it with a friend, ask questions. I'd love to hear from you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.